Welcome to Solo Spotlight, everybody, where we delve into personal journeys and transformative experiences with individuals from diverse backgrounds. I'm your host, Ryan MacDougall, and I'm joined by Z- Zacon, Z- Zycon, Zycon,
There you go.
Zycon Newman, a multifaceted artist who endeavors span podcasting, music, stand-up comedy, and spiritual exploration. Our conversation aims to uncover the motivations behind his varied pursuits and how they interconnect with the shape of his unique path. This discussion is an invitation to explore the intersections of creativity, identity, and personal growth. So let's dive in. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm ready, willing, and able, feeling very alive and centered and grounded. So I'm
Yeah.
doing pretty well, thanks.
Elated, as some might say.
Yeah.
Um, um, just out of curiosity, when you do these type of things, or when you're getting prepared for stand up, do you kind of have any like rituals that you have that you like do beforehand? Like sometimes for me, like I have to do like 5 minute meditation, stay grounded, and then like knowing that I'm leaving everything at the door.
So I would say for me, there's sort of two that I've like stuck with. One, I started a little bit later into the journey or into the quote unquote career. Not that I'm like a paid stand-up comedian or anything, but the first one is just like walking around. Like the first time I ever did stand up comedy, I walked all the way from like I could have drove, but I was just so like geeked out and like worried and like anxious that I just like needed to like walk all the way. It was like a couple miles just to the open mic at this bar in the neighboring like city, and
Mhm.
then besides that, I also will like write down the set list in this book that I have when I'm like
Right.
trying to actually like be in the thing of this is the set list and I'm sticking to the script sort of or like
Hmm.
the uh the routine the
Right.
routine.
I had an interview with one guy, and he said, if you haven't put in the years of practice beforehand, the 5 minutes means nothing. Because I basically asked him, I said, like, before like a playoff game, people have like and he was like a mental health coach, and
Mhm.
I said, like, before playoff games, people like sometimes people have like nervous shits or whatever it is. Like I was like, when you're like having something so deeply personal, how do you like you leave your own bullshit at the door and like get ready to like endure whatever chaos this person is going to bring in? And he's like, it comes down to just like training and like putting in like the reps. He's like, so if I needed to like meditate 5 minutes beforehand, or there was something I needed to do, he was like, I've already failed. And I thought that was
Mhm.
pretty interesting, because like that wasn't something that I ever thought about before, where he's like, I go into it knowing that like I've been preparing for years. So it's very interesting. And it's a very interesting like contrast, because like I understand it, but I kind of don't believe it, if that makes sense. Like I get where he's coming from, but I'm also like, yeah, some people need that like mental like giddy up.
Sure, yeah, there's like a yeah, like you just have like your like you do the thing and you're like well comedy's kind of crazy because it's like there's it's just you can't control who's going to that show and what their taste in the fucking like thing is, so you just kind of gotta like roll with the punches of if what you're saying is just pissing them off
Right.
or you're bombing, like you just gotta go with it. And like some
So
yeah,
let's
some
so let's go into comedy. What what was your original like idea when you decided like creating comedy, or even like the idea of getting up and telling jokes? Like was there like a type of like persona or like shtick that you wanted to go with, where you like, this is how my comedy is gonna work?
well, I mean, when I
Like
first started, I just
yeah,
wanted to
go
make
ahead.
somebody laugh. I just wanted to make some people laugh and like feel like I was like cuz growing up there were people in my like school, my grade that were like funnier than me, but like or I felt like were funnier than me and I was just like whatever, like I'll do this thing and I did it and I got people to laugh and I was like, "Oh, that wasn't super crazy hard," or like it was really uncomfortable. It was like way too talked for way too long, didn't really have like too much prepared. I didn't really don't you don't know what you're doing in the beginning. You're just fucking you're just winging it. You're just
You're
hoping.
just doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really honestly the only metric for success as a comedian is like the laugh, how long, how hard, and like that's really it. I mean, there's the aspect of like, oh, you're trying to make it a career and like travel and like be a professional touring, gigging stand up comedian. But and there was that aspect for me a lot in the beginning, or I was like sort of like hoping to like get on shows and like do all this stuff. But I just really just want to be able to like enjoy it every time that I do it, even if I don't do well, because like
Hmm.
I the Mike I've been going to recently down in Santa Cruz, they're just like it seems like the comedians are so hard on themselves, and I'm just like I don't want it to. And I have that aspect of my too of like a perfectionist or a very like specific like motif because you had asked about the what was it? The if I had a shtick or anything that I was going with, it's honestly like I want when I do stand up comedy to like the person that they see on stage is like as soon as I get off the stage and no longer have the microphone on me, I'm the same fucking person. Like it's
Right.
there's no difference. It's just me being
And
me.
did you find that like did you now I don't want to jump off topic too much, but what was like the first what was the first kind of experience for you when you were putting like your personal self forward or like kind of giving yourself like a personal like a public platform and like how did that grow because I think a lot of times even as much as I love comedy and I'm a huge comedy buff like I have no idea what it's like. I always wanted to do it and I know I will in the future. But it's like it's one thing being like, yo, I think I'm a funny dude and make people laugh. And then there's a structure behind it. And then there's this idea of like, I want people to know me as this comedian, or I wanna have this like transparency of like my stage dude as well as like the dude that people see. But has there been any like experiences where you felt like that didn't necessarily work out, or like there was some type of like protection that you needed to give yourself? Whether that
Yeah.
be ego, whether that be security, whether that be like criticism. Cause like some people, like say people that don't put their face on YouTube, it's like, well, it's not the idea that they don't want their voice heard. It's the idea that like they don't want their looks criticized or they don't want their art being judged based on the way that they represent themselves. Now, was there any like something like that where you were like, oh, this could lead me into trouble in the future?
Um Not really. I think the hardest thing has been like having to take criticism from people that are like either as good as me or worse than me because I'm just like, dog, like you're out
And
here.
how do you and how do you judge that?
It's that one's tough, man. I mean, I try to live by one of like the four agreements, and one of them is like don't take anything personal. But that one's super tough when it's like it's just this one specific time, and I really wish I could let this shit go. But it was just so it felt so insulting to have somebody like say that my stuff was cringy when the stuff that they do is like just as bad, and like this whole like thing
And
and
it's crazy because it's subjective.
yeah, well, I mean, I didn't do amazing, but there was like one group of people in the corner that were like laughing super hard at the shit. Or nah, that's a different time, but like a couple people laughed at some of the stuff that I had said because I struggle or like it's tough for me if I'm like not in a good place mentally or emotionally, then like that just bleeds right into like what I'm doing on stage. And it just was like I felt fucking not great, and but like was in the routine of going to this mic on Sunday, and I just like did said my piece, and fucking like some
Mhm.
people laughed, some people didn't, and the guy was like, "Oh, that was cringy." I'm like, "Dog, this is just like my life and what I'm going through. Like, I can't care about what you gotta say, man." And like it honestly like was a little off putting, and I don't really go to that spot anymore because of how much it was just like annoying to have to deal with someone who was just like yes, you want to be able to separate the messaging and the art from the artist, but like you just like I'm so much myself doing it that it's like dude just like all right forget you
And
like
and it's interesting because it's funny that you brought that up because I think that a lot of people don't experience something like that until they start creating their own thing. Because
mm,
like I always talk about like, okay, say I work for like a big mega corporation or whatever. Well, if this corporation fails or I had a project and it didn't deliver as successfully, it's not really my problem. I don't own this business. I don't really give a fuck. It doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
matter. But as soon as you, how quickly the amount of pride that you have towards the success of something that you created more. And it's like a multifaceted thing because I always look and say, well, was my ideation of an employee right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know what I mean, if like I thought this needed to be as successful and I only really cared about it when it was my own shit, you know what I mean? Was I really being a good employee? But
Mm-hmm.
that's besides the fact. But like I started to see that as well, where like my ability to take criticism or like my ability to like give people the reins to something or allow people to have like some creative control. I was kind of like I was kind of like upset through that because it was like, well, this is blood, sweat, and tears. Like I've been like working really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, or like say if it was a bit that you didn't make, it might have, and then the person's like, it was corny. You're like, it's fine. I didn't even do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And how quickly, like how fast, like the level of sensitivity gets when you start having ownership over those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's like it's tough when you're that time was just so specific. Like there's this other time that comes to mind where like this college kid had gone up before me and like did some like weird like I didn't even think they were like that not funny. I think people laugh like closer, edgier, racier like jokes, and then
Right.
like he made some comment about the KKK, and then like when I went up, said something where like, "Hey man, like I get it. I left my my hood and sheet at home. Like I was like totally like obviously not in the KKK. Like clearly no." And then
Yeah.
like the lady running the mic like came up after me after that was like, "That's just not funny. Don't say that shit." And I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. Like that was a joke, bro. Like what do you mean? Like so like being able to like the that just that one, the other one just felt so much more of like you, your process, you're not valid, you're not cringy, and the other one was just like I'm literally just fucking around being a funny guy. Like this, it
Right.
doesn't matter at all.
And in your experience, like what is like the threshold of people like like becoming regulars and an open mic or something like that? Like do you find that like you're constantly competing with like the guy that's its first time doing stand up?
Oh fuck no, dude. I mean, like it. I don't even know dude, about like. I mean, it's just it's dope just to like when somebody's like on and like everything that they're saying is killing and it's just great and like if as long as you're like enjoying it, that like when comparison starts to steal your joy of like either the love of the craft or just like being able to like ruin the moment of like being there and like present with what's going on, that's like when shit kind of gets sideways and you're quote unquote competing because I did one stand up comedy competition and like I didn't fucking win and like I didn't really think that I was gonna win because it's just like
Right.
I'm not I'm okay with like not being that quote unquote that funny or like I just that's not the way I want to win. Like comedy is just
Right.
sort of like an aspect to who I am or a side of my fucking soul.
Would you say it's like an outlet?
Um,
Like
yeah,
for you to
and
like kind of like expressing thoughts or like opinions or like whatever your takes may be, because like I even say that with podcasting where it's like it is this just a way because I talk so much that like I can't get in the room with this many people that want to listen to me, so the only way is to force it down their throat.
that's a
Like that's like what I think. Cause like my one of the biggest like criticisms that I've had over my whole life is like you're too loud and you talk too much. And it was like,
Mhm,
well, that's the basis of a podcast. But it was the idea of like getting out of your own way, right? But
mhm.
like the idea of like how much are you doing it for some like metrics of success and how much is it like a personal success?
Um, yeah, well, I mean, like on like the societal level, I'm just like I don't. I'm never going to move to New York or LA specifically to just pursue a career as a purely stand up comedian. I'm too multifaceted as a human being to like just dedicate and give up the potential and the other shit that I want to do as a man
Hmm.
to just do that. It's like what is it? The jack of all trades, master of none, but better than one. I kind
Yeah.
of like really live by that like that saying or that homage that I just want to really be expansive and like multidimensional in
Get
that way.
get as many notches in your belt.
Yeah, I just love novelty and different experiences and like going to an open mic and like just fucking kicking it with people and like having a good time and like laughing and getting over this like hurdle or like weird hang up that I have of like not being the center of attention is
Hmm.
also part of it. Just being able to like enjoy other people's like process and perspectives because there's comedy is like this like guessing game or like being able to like see expectation and then shatter it or like that's the whole thing of like set up punchline of like you say
Hmm.
one thing and they expect you to go one way and you say something else and like that's the whole like the whole
That's the
lap
whole part of the joke.
yeah that's the whole fucking like system or like what's the fucking yeah like
Now,
not
over time, you probably got better at like gauging that though, where it's like, oh, I can now like in engaging it, would you like gauge that from like the jokes that other people were saying, like the people that were before, like the people that were telling jokes before you, and you're like, oh, the audience is laughing to this type of joke, but he dropped a trans joke, and everybody was like, ah, you're like, okay, well, scratch that, like.
yeah
Is that kind of the idea, or is it kind of like, oh, I go up there, if the joke bombs, I never tell the joke again,
um
or just like a mix?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything that I was literally like it was so bad that I like? Oh yeah, okay. So there's like this bit that I was like working on, and I would like start with it every time, and it got to the point where like I was just saying too because the poet in me and like the fucking like philosopher in me, it was like just trying to make it like too fucking like big and like and comedy is this very short, condensed like you're just saying the very bare necessary words to get to the next laugh. So I had to
Yeah,
just like trim all of the fat off to get to the point where we're just like being able to make the fucking the joke, and I just like
yeah,
it's so yeah. There's just this like you can only do what's necessary and what the crowd has the time and stomach for because you're not famous and they're not there to
yeah.
just like bask in you being this super ultra cool person that they think that you are.
Well, and the fact that what I think too that kind of does a disservice to this type of like this art is that the top 1% is so like highly glamorized,
Hmm.
where like, and I'll bring up another interview where I had an interview with a historian, and she talked about how like women were never like glorified in art, like only men were capable in the history of like creating like Vincent van Goghs and stuff like that. But then when you found out like how much Vincent van Gogh's wife was like a huge proponent in like pushing his art, and it was this idea that then when females were applying to like schools and in art history programs and stuff, they were getting denied because it's like, well, we don't even think it's possible for you to
Hmm.
be as smart as this guy. But I
Right.
think I think that transcends in a way where you look at comedy and you say like, well, he ain't David Lucas, he ain't Joe Rogan, he ain't this guy. So I'll laugh at the jokes and whatever, but he's never really that funny. And it's kind of like does a disservice where it's like if I'm not going to see a Jimmy Carr or whatever, like the expectation that I'm going to get like blown out of my seat is
Hmm.
like it's almost like I'm challenging you to now prove to me that you're funny, even though I came to a comedy show.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I mean, that's a pretty combative take, I guess. I like, I'm just like, yeah,
But
like,
I think like look at Kill Tony. Like look at like the type of style that Kill Tony has. It's like it's set up to like prove that people suck at comedy.
sure.
And then when someone does, it's like, here's a big joke book. Here, you're going to be a full time, opener on Kill Tony. But it's like the idea is like, we expect you to come up here. And like the fact that that's so glamorized is like just going to an open mic. Do you think that the general public is like, yeah, I'll laugh, but I'm not going to howl?
I mean, that's just it's on the comedian to like have something so like diabolically hilarious that they can't not laugh because it's just
Exactly.
so goddamn funny. So it's like
Well,
that
and then
level of
that's
like
how. Go
no,
ahead.
it's
Sorry.
just that level of like genius and like it takes a long time to like or maybe not a long time, but or either solid inspiration or just dedication to just like writing and writing and writing and writing because you're gonna write a crap ton of stuff that's like not great and like refining it and like getting it to a fucking thing where it's like you get to that point where you have like a solid couple of like jokes that like you can weave together into like a longer thing that's like more than 5 minutes that you're gonna get those like very intense. Holy shit, this guy's fucking hilarious for saying that. Like
And I
takes.
think that's where like people start to get the organic like audience where it's like
Yeah.
I've shown you that I can do it, and now like you naturally, so it's interesting at such a public facing thing. I think that like a lot of people like they neglect that like there's actually an art involved, and there's pacing, and there's
Mhm.
like timing and reading the audience and being like, oh, okay, like so it's very interesting. Now my next question, when you talk about like being like have all these different endeavors, would you say that all these endeavors are like split equally across your life, or would some endeavors take more priority than others? Like if you were to break up all of your things that you have going on into like a pizza, would they be equal slices, or is it kind of like, well, this is a smaller one and this is a huge part of my life? And how do you kind of uh how do you meet all of these like
It's
requirements you have for yourself?
it's super seasonal, man. Like I've had to like accept that about me that like you because you only have so much time and energy in a day and in a week and in a month and in a year and that like I call them like priority stones or just I imagine that like if you have a backpack. Your life is a backpack, and you're carrying that shit around with you. That like sometimes you got to take some shit out and put it down for a while, and then come back and pick it back up because some of them are going to be heavier and grow and shrink as
You're
fucking
not
time
you're not always
evolves.
packing for the same trip,
Yeah, exactly, dude.
right?
Life is
Yeah.
always constantly changing, so you just kind of got to like meet it where it's at and like live your life on your own terms, but then like don't get so rigid that you're like you're fucking yourself super hard because you're just like not adapting to what you need to be doing.
Now, does this take like a type of like flexibility in a way of like for me, like I invite a lot of people on. Like when I started, it was I every 10 guests that I invited, 7 of them would cancel the day of.
Yeah,
So with that, it's like how do you continue doing those but understanding like this is still part of like the natural evolution, and then you're like, ah, but fuck, I have to make music, and like all these guests canceled and now I have to make music. It's like how do you like keep yourself like motivated in a terms of like knowing that like one success or failure doesn't necessarily like go to another thing that you're doing, and how do you like separate that?
it's just being able to like trust that like the overarching long-term stuff that I'm doing in my life is still going to happen no matter any whatever type of like short-term setbacks that I face. Like recently I've been having a fairly difficult time being able to get people on that podcast. Like I was going to all the open mics, talking to all these comedians and like one out of like the 20 maybe that I like to talk to that were like they all of them said yes, but only one of them actually did the interview and I'm
Yeah.
just like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's so it can be, it feels frustrating to just like
Yeah.
have people say one thing and then their actions be completely different and be like, all right, you're just another fucking person who like their word means nothing.
Well, and as well too, another thing that you have to think about too is like how much does this have to do with me, or how much is this person just a flaky person? And like if I would have invited this guy to beers, he probably would have canceled on me too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and that's something that I had to learn to like get out of that, because immediately you'd be like, man, maybe I'm just not good at interviewing people. Maybe my show, maybe the idea, maybe the vision. But then you're like, yo, your problems aren't my problems. If you couldn't show up, man, I was, you know what I mean? Like I was here ready. So so I think it's like the experience is the experience, and like it's up to you to determine like how you're going to view that and like have that like shape yourself going forward. But it is definitely like disheartening. And like going into that, like starting the podcast, what were kind of like your like initial hurdles? Was it a technology thing? Was it like like for me it was learning how to like properly like shut up and listen,
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, there's
right?
definitely yeah. The basically, I get there was a little bit of like having to commit to the not so glamorous parts about of doing it. Like it's easy for me to like sit and listen and talk and like have interesting questions or questions like the um, structure stuff of the show. But then the having to sit down and like edit for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours to get it to a thing, and then the whole business side of things of like marketing it and like setting it up so that there's like hooks in the beginning so, and like the like a preview of like other successful shows that do the thing where they like show you a couple clips of the conversation that you're like, oh, this is like what I'm gonna get into, like little preview, and then they do an intro, and then they do the show. Where I'm just like, I want to be lazy and just like do it the way that I think it's supposed to be done, but it's like that there's just could be such a disconnect with like your thought process versus reality and the actual like things that it takes to be successful doing it.
And I think it comes down to like what you want to, and like I said this multiple times on and off camera about like identity, and like the first thing that I did when I started was immediately I started calling myself a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately as soon as I did my first episode, I immediately, because as soon as I put myself in that mindset of, okay, I'm not trying to do it, I'm doing it. And whether or not it's picture perfect, it's going to be sloppy. It's going to be sloppy 8,000 times before it's right. But it's the idea of like keep coming back, right? And
Mm-hmm.
as well as like understanding like what works and what doesn't. And the only thing that works is trial and error, right?
Right.
And finding out, and it's interesting because it's like the same type of things that I thought about when I was like doing mine of like, what am I trying to do? What's my vision? And like, do I want to edit this fake? Do I pay someone? Everybody and their dog is like, yo, let me promote your podcast. We think it's so amazing. But you kind of have to like see through that and like kind of have like an overarching like understanding of like, yo, I'm on the long game here. And like the same way you talk about comedy and stuff, you know, in our last 20 minutes, it's the same type of thing of like, you have to like manage your expectations, right? And like understand like both comedy, podcasting, music, it's all hyper saturated, right? And it's the idea of like, well, I rather take 5 years and gain an organic audience than take 1 year and gain like a bloated, like, you know, artificial audience, right? Because with that it comes with your engagement, and there's so many things that like but I think it's glamorized, right? It's when do I get the sponsorships? When do I get this? When do I get that? Right? But yeah, it's interesting, and I kind of want to go into like what was your drive for this? Like, what was your like? Was it to help highlight all of your other endeavors, or was this like another thing when you look at comedy of like this is just another way to like get shit off my chest?
So for me, I had done a podcast previously where was driving around for Uber, and it was just like you just have so many great conversations doing that shit with people, and it was just like I should record these and put these on the internet because like
Yeah.
why the fuck not? And definitely the aspect of like I'm good enough to do this, and like I'm never really concerned about the hypersaturation of it because I just feel like the pretenders will fade away eventually. Like the people who are just like doing it for the clout and are just chasing the bullshit of like trying to be famous. That like they don't actually have the passion or like the integrity or like the drive to just stick with it when they're not getting that instant gratification or the validation. So for me, after starting the first one and like moving and not really being able to do it anymore because I was living in my car after I fucking moved to California, that like I tumbled around and like just had decided because I was able to with the identity piece like accepted that I am an artist and that there's this level of like Joe Rogan isn't going to be around for forever, so like there is going to be a giant power vacuum when that guy like stops doing his show, and that like I I'm also a comedian, so like I could just like maybe get my slice of the pie from the world if I get to that point, if as long as I don't give up, and that like I just also really like to try to focus on like the not so selfish desires of like when I'm more um, well known and I've been doing it for a decade or however long, that when I meet an up and coming artist or and just in my travels, living my life, doing all the shit that I do, that like I meet somebody and I'm able to be like, if you sit down with me for an hour, dog, like I can literally change your fucking life if you just talk to me and answer these questions and like are
Mhm.
legitimately or authentic human being and are cool about it. Like
Yeah.
it's not rocket
Well,
science, but you just got to be yourself.
a big thing I say to myself too is like, how will you feel if it never comes? Like,
Hmm.
and I always tell people like, I always talk about things in like a life cycle of
Hmm.
like, hey, I had a person on to talk about like her brother who has epilepsy, and someone
Hmm.
commented and was like, "Oh, my family has epilepsy. My family member has epilepsy," and like this was a really insightful. Or I had a guy on to talk about like it was the beginning of Ramadan, and he was talking about like his culture and his Muslim faith and like what Ramadan meant and everything, and people were coming up to me and saying, I'm like a practicing Muslim and I learned something from that episode. Like, thank you. It's like, yo, life cycle's complete. It's like, yo, you could blow me up today. And it's like, I'm good. Like, because the job's done. Like
Hmm.
the idea of what you were trying to do of like affecting change or like inciting an emotion, it's the same way with comedy, where it's like, did I make someone laugh? Check, right?
Right.
Where I think that gives people a little bit of like they can take it easy on themselves. Because it's
Hmm.
like, yo, you did it. You know what I mean? Like you already did it. You didn't do it in front of 10,000 people, but you did it. So you're
Right.
doing something, but you're doing something right. It might not be perfect, but it's like you have something there, then now you just need to knead the dough,
Yeah. Yeah. Let
right?
the yeast rise. Yeah.
Exactly.
I believe I'm one of these crazy motherfuckers that like think that they can change the world and have faith that it all is that I am gonna make it and that I am
Yeah.
gonna blow up and be well known and famous. But like, because I that perspective of like, what if it never comes? That shit like that would that would suck. I'd be like,
Or
damn it, dude. But
Or
the
would you
point.
do it or would you do it if that was never the goal? Like if the goal is like you just do it on a mediocre level. And like when I get asked that question, sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a, like given the amount of work it is, if there
Mhm.
wasn't the goal of like attaining monetization, would I even be doing it? And at the start, it'd be like fuck no,
Mhm.
but throughout like having conversations with people and like understanding, I interviewed a chick that she was in the circus and her whole thing was to do like acts with her breasts because growing up she had a disorder that she had like uncontrollable breast tissue, and
Mhm.
so through her acts she was like people during like school parties and would have her like breaking things with her boobs and stuff, and she's like, instead of being represented like this by someone else, I'm going to decide to represent this my own way. If I'm going to be called this, I'm going to shape my own future. And it was like, if I didn't do this, I would have never had the opportunity to talk to this or even talking to you, right?
Mhm.
So looking at it and looking at how much the consistency pays off, it's like you can kind of sit with yourself and be like, hey, even though there might not be like the expectation of like, I'm going to strap a jetpack on myself and I'm going to be, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like super affluential and like, have all of this going on. It's like, I have learned so much from like just sitting in rooms with different people and being like, yeah, like maybe I will continue doing this forever regardless, right?
Yeah.
But like I think that's like a hard thing to do because some people say like no, you have to be cutthroat if you ain't trying to make it. Like if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense,
Sure.
right? So it's it's an interesting crossroads, right? And like the idea that like you have the idea that like yeah, I'm going to get there. It's like that's exactly what you should think,
Right.
right?
I feel like it's inevitable as long as I stick with it and don't just stop doing it. That like even if it takes it's gonna take time. Like I'm not expecting there to be like this instant like the Illuminati is gonna call me on the phone and fucking like blow me up overnight. I'd be like the what is it in music in the industry they call them like industry plants or whatever where like
Yeah,
suddenly this person just
yeah,
randomly famous.
like a Bobby Altoff or like some of these like podcasters that come in where you're like, who the fuck is this person? I've never
Yeah.
heard of this person in my life. But as well, too, like again, like we talk about, like what does success look like? Um, as well as like, you know, I think I lost my train of thought, but I was thinking about the idea of like you know, it's lost it. Lost it. Totally gone. Totally gone. Um so do it like so doing your podcast, has there been any memorable moments for you? Like what do you
Um.
think has been like the most memorable moment either in terms of like growth or in terms of like experience?
Hmm, it's a good fucking question, man. I mean, I just one thing that was pretty cool to me was like finding this person randomly on Threads, and then doing the interview with her, like loving the interview. Shout out to Hannah Bowers. And then she makes music, dope artist that I really like. And then meeting her in person in LA, like going to a thing that she was doing when I was like traveling down that way, and it was just like it felt very like coming like full circle, or just like really cool to see that like the internet does have this capacity, or just like the process of like putting yourself out there and talking to complete and utter strangers in your life, that like you can like meet cool people and do cool stuff just by like.
Did you have any apprehension with that, or did it take a level of like vulnerability to like get in contact with complete strangers?
Oh yeah, it's totally the like either like this the archetype of like the salesman, or like the little kid who just because
That
kids
was the death. That was the death of me. Like I
oh
hate
yeah,
crowds. I don't like being out. Like I don't like being out in big like events. So like
yeah,
when I'm reaching out to people, it's like, hey, like hi, hey there. Like
mm,
you want to come on my show? Like, and I really had to like grow into it. Where like that was a huge thing that set me back because like the fear of embarrassment or the fear of like yo, you think I'm gonna risk my image on you? Like, but then you get over it, right? And you have enough confidence in like your own like art, I would
mm.
say, where you're like, no, 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 I'm gonna prove that this was like a good choice for you, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a thing of like, can you go up to a random woman and ask her for her phone number and try to like, it's the same level of like rejection of just like, can you put yourself out there and be like, hey, like, do you want to? I'm gonna give you this opportunity. Do you want to come fucking like do something cool and talk to me for an hour, or like, nah,
Right.
like if you don't, it's on you. What am I gonna do? You're just like, so many people are just like left unread, don't respond, or like say no, and you're just like, all right, well, I have the thing is like, thanks for the no. You just bring it, getting me closer to the next yes. I live
Yep.
with that.
And it's like all I can do is ask.
That's it.
I can't read your mind. All I can do is ask. And hey, you might not want to now. But now, here's a question I have for you. Because I've had some people where they immediately like I was at a certain level and they were like, yeah, I'm good. Like you ain't worth it. And then say a year down the line, they're like, oh man, like you should get me on your podcast, man. Blah, 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 blah. I would have such a disdain
Mm,
and be like, yo, because that person fucked me off and like they devalued me,
yeah.
like I'm never having this person on. But then, but then I said, is that the type of person I'm trying to like represent?
Mm,
Like, if I'm literally willing to sit in a room with anybody, I should be able to. And if this is a part of the conversation that I need to bring forward, well, maybe this is a conversation. Maybe and it's right. Like maybe I have to ask them during the interview. So why did you choose now to come on?
yeah. Well,
Right?
I mean
But
that. That's
But
your
it
prerogative. It's your prerogative, man. Like, hey, like if
right.
it's
But
a,
how much of that do you have to get out of your own way?
I mean, yeah, it's are quote unquote, are you being petty? Like, or is it just like you're gonna be the one who's gonna have to deal with the emotion and the thought process and accepting that like you do have the choice and the power and control of like the situation after the fact. But for me, yeah, if somebody was just like, no, you're not big enough yet, and then later after you like got grew a little bit, were like wanted asked and like
Yeah.
wanted to come on, I'd be like, dude, I don't know, like why didn't you want to do it before? Like I just, yeah, that's a little like, oh, you only want it now that I like have something that you want, and that's a little like
Right.
feels very
And
usury for me.
100%. But like the idea of like, yo, and am I letting this person like control like my own narrative type thing? And like it's I don't know. I feel like it you have to have a level of like detachment where it's like where you're like, no, I genuinely want to have this conversation with you, and like I know things happen. I'm willing to have like a level of like, you know what I mean, like letting things go. Because I
Hmm.
think that like when it comes down to podcasting, like or I talk about anything, like even interviewing like other artists and stuff. And a question I have for you is like managing your own ego. Like, has that ever been like? Have that ever been like something that you've had to like sit with of like how do I not look like how do I not talk out of term, how do I not go into rooms and act like I'm a like maybe I have one well performing now I'm a fucking hot shot, or like I have 10 interviews under my belt and the 11th person that comes on I'm talking like I'm Jordan Peterson, right?
Hmm.
Like how has been your experience in like monitoring your ego and like taking positive feedback but not like letting it like almost like absorb you.
Well, so I this is sort of what I wanted the thing that I wanted said about what we were just talking about, this the people who are like you the usury types that like
Hmm.
if you don't treat, like if this is the thing is Muhammad Ali, like if you don't treat the janitor the way you treat the CEO, like I just think that speaks so much to your like the how your lizard brain is like measuring the hierarchy of the situation, and like you're just a power hungry fuck at that point. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
don't,
gross.
yeah, yeah, it's
It's
like I don't,
gross.
it's you like, if you not developed the fucking like prefrontal, like are you using your heart, are you like capable of being like, this is just a human being who like, are you a good person, like what the fuck, man,
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
just to just to that point of like, if we don't match on that feeling of that level of like, oh, you're just like, you're genuinely a good human being, or like I can like see the goodness in you, then I don't want to like involve myself energetically with that person. And then following up to what you had actually asked about my ego being the size of fucking Jupiter. Yeah, I grapple and struggle constantly with the fear of success. That like if my bank account were to have 6 or 7 zeros in it, and I could just fucking fuck off and do whatever I wanted all the time and I pray constantly and try to avoid the notion of thinking of becoming a tyrannical billionaire or like evil human being who's just like, I have so much money and power, I can do whatever the fuck I want, I can act like fucking P Diddy or fucking Jeffrey Epstein and just fuck everybody over because I'm so interconnected and interwoven with like blackmail and black magic that I could just do whatever I want. So yeah, I don't want I drink ayahuasca and do things that are like, make sure I Brazilian jiu jitsu, get my shit kicked in, and get humbled, so that like
yeah,
that doesn't happen.
100%. And like going off of that too, it's like it's the idea of like uh, genuinely are you just being a good person, right? Like that's like a huge thing that I think speaks volumes to like I always like, and I'll break off in a little bit of a tangent, but like, I always used to get like so upset, like, and I still do, where like people just like they go somewhere, it's not at the like the time or like the whatever level of confidence, and they just start crashing out, and you're
Mm.
like. man, like if you were on the other side of that desk, or like, yo, I would hate to be spoken to like that, right? Where you're just like, just relax, right? And like, do you think that like, I don't know what it's like in the States, but like when I look at like the population and stuff, I like grow like entire I go like more worrisome of like this loss of like empathy, or like this loss of like, yo, everybody makes mistakes. Like you could have easily been in the same issue as that person 5 seconds ago, but you went left, he went right. Like, just give people a little bit of room to breathe. Do you find like that's like a societal change, that like people are a lot more like cutthroat and like a lot more like critical?
Mm, yeah, maybe the centralization of people to like cities, and the like the bystander effect, that like you just feel so disempowered, and like on the assumption that like somebody else is gonna do something, that you take no action on your in your own on your own behalf or your own right. And it depends on the person, man. Yeah, there's definitely like I don't know, say.
Or the notion that like, I always like struggled with this, of like the notion like nice guys finish last. Like
Mm,
if you're not a cutthroat guy, like you're never gonna, like if you make promises to everybody, like, you know what I mean? A friend, it's like uh I forget what Mike Tyson said. He's like, a friend to everybody is like an enemy to yourself, or something like that, right? Where it's like you can't please everybody, so you kind of have to, like, you have to have the notion of like, I know this is going to come off as like ignorant to someone, and like that's fine,
yeah, yeah. Well, because
right?
kindness isn't weakness, and the be if you're a yes man, then your yeses mean nothing because you can't say no. And like
Yeah,
the power of like
right.
holding a boundary and saying no to some be like gives off the energy of sometimes to some people of like tough love, but they'll like
Hmm.
if you can't say no, then you have no like no power or no like resolve in yourself to be able to be like, no, this is actually not good for me. I'm not gonna just like do that and like go out of my
Have
way
you
to help
ever
you.
Have you ever been like put in that situation like creatively, where you had to like stick your heels in and be like, yeah, I'm actually going to do it this way, despite like the zeitgeist telling me like, nah, this ain't going to work?
Hmm.
Or like just relying on like creative intuition?
Um. Yeah, I mean, maybe more so of just a thing of like worrying about like flack or blowback or if people like judging me for what I'm saying and what I'm doing, because I do feel like I try to like push back against the cultural zeitgeist on a lot of things, because I feel like some of the equality and equity in the world is just like weaponized fucking like empathy, or like using the goodwill and the good hearts of people against them in a weird twisted way where they don't
Yeah.
even realize that they're being manipulated because of it's just so deviously fucking insidious like that.
Yeah, people, I find like the level of manipulation that happens right now is like on a whole nother like world, in terms of like people don't even know they're being finessed. And then they're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I said yes to what?
Hmm.
Um, and then kind of like going into like the music. I want to get into the music, and then I want to get into the ayahuasca. But I kind of want to touch on this notion of like all of the things that you're doing are like, they're at this angle where it invites a lot of criticism. So do you kind of have to shield yourself from this criticism? And is there any type of moderation you give yourself, of like, I know some people are like posting ghost, right? Where it's like, I put what I want out, people think what they want. Um, or like, do you tend to take feedback from all of these areas and like equally consider it and like put it back into those notions? Or does it go back to like a central, like being like, when you get criticism in any of these areas, whether it be like podcasting, music, or comedy, do you find it goes back into those cabinets, or do you find like it points back to you as a person?
Well, immediately for some reason my brain just the Little Wayne lyric like real G's move in silence like lasagna. Like you just
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know, dude. That's just for me. That's just very much how I feel. That like
Yeah.
you do all the work like silently and like behind the scenes, and then like you let your results speak for themselves, and that like the criticism, man. Yeah, this shit's killer. That like I kind of like this is something that I picked up from Gary V. Even though I'm not sure if he's like that good of a person or not because I don't know him on a
Yeah.
personal level, but that like if you wouldn't switch places with the person like giving you the feedback, like or like think that the person's like got it together or is like a good like role model for you, then like you probably shouldn't listen to them. Like
Yeah, it's like don't take advice from people that you wouldn't like take credit. Yeah, it's like if you weren't doing what they're doing, then it does. I'm not gonna ask a golfer their thoughts about how I can shoot a free throw.
yeah, exactly. They're
It's
like
like you're a golfer, dude. It doesn't matter.
right. You're literally your opinion means is less than meaningless to me
Yeah,
at this
ex-
moment in time.
right. But when you look at something which is like again when we talked about like podcasting where it's almost this idea of like personal journaling where I think that you know I think the engagement kind of is different where like if it's a technical aspect, sure. Like if it's, hey, you say like all of the time or whatever it is, right? That
Mm,
people say to me, it's like, okay, that's criticism that I can handle. But then there's criticism where it's like, I can't control that. Where like one guy said during one of my videos where he's uh, like I know a tweaker when I see one. And you're like, and you're just like, I don't think that has anything to do with anything that's, so, and then that kind of like method where it's like, well, you don't do anything that I do, so I would never like, you know,
mm.
um,
Well, so I just want to say that the
yeah,
you have to know yourself better than anybody else, and that at the end of the day, you have to know what's truly, really true in your own heart and soul, and move from that place. Because this whole worry about manipulation or worrying about what other people are thinking or saying about you is this like little like chips or pushes against you to trying to knock you off center and like forcing not forcing you but like tricking you into changing who you think that you are to suit what they're saying.
yeah, yeah. There's certain ideas, and I don't know if you might echo this, but there's certain things that I will purposely not tell people because I was like, all it takes is a slight gust of wind
Mm,
and I will change my opinion on this. Right.
mm-hmm,
So it's like, I can't tell a soul. I have to complete this from start to finish without divulging anything. Because the moment someone says boo, I'm probably going to change it. And it's
mm,
like, I know in my head that it's going to work the way I want it to. But it's like, I'm so like vulnerable to like, you know what I mean? That like
yeah.
changing my interpretation where it's like you almost have to gatekeep certain things and I think that's like I think whether that be like a tactical decision or not, like that's something that I'm learning through of like you know maybe I like divulge too much and then like people are like that's stupid and then you're like okay I'll never do it, right?
Mm, yeah.
um but breaking back off into what you're doing because I tend to talk a lot about myself, but
Don't we all?
Um, but going into music, when did your music journey start? Has this started through, was this like a lifetime thing? Was this like something through like these creative elements that you kind of like found a calling towards?
So originally, yeah, I mean, I was just fucking like little me, a little kid. I just loved to sing along with the songs, and I just thought it was so great. But there was this insecurity of like, I'm not good enough to do that. What the fuck? Like, and there was no musicians in my immediate family or my extended family at all, so there was never like a, oh shit, you want to fucking like here do the like my mom
Yeah.
got me the guitar and like I fucking learned like a little bit and then I was like this is too hard man. There was never like a like keep going you can do this like energy in my immediate circle. So I just like put it down, put it away, and my brother like started playing the piano and I was like damn my comparison stealing my fucking thief my joy there of just like oh he's like better than me like I'll just let like him be the thing the musician. And then eventually in like middle school, joined like the band and played the drums because I just like rhythm is foundational for all musics. And I again didn't think I was good enough to like play a fucking melody instrument, not realizing that melody fucking notes are just fucking rhythm notes, but like in a fucking up or down a fucking scale, like blowing my own mind. And then finally, eventually getting to the point of the real inciting incident was like I like wanted to learn how to play this song for this girl, and then I like fumbled the bag and like lost the girl, but then like stuck with the guitar because I just fell in love with being able to like play strum chords and sing songs that I like love. And just eventually got to the point once I moved out to California to where I made a friend and then made friends with her boyfriend, and like he helped me make my fucking second album, and I met people through the ayahuasca circle who paid to fly me to fucking Kentucky to record my first album. So I just had a lot
Wow.
of like miracles and support, yeah, along the way, and just like have had to adjust to the fact that like, yeah, I'm a fucking musical weirdo who loves to fucking sing and
Well, it's that
stuff.
same thing when you were talking about like booking guests, where it's like the power of collaboration and like the power of getting like-minded individuals in the same room, and how like crazy that is for people's journeys, and how like you could be at one spot and all it takes is like to link up with one person that kind of can see the vision somewhat the same way that you see it, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like now it's like a gas fire, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um Now, how was your like picking like your like the sound that you wanted to make? So, kind of describe to me like the sound that you like, the type of music that you're trying to make.
Dude, fuck. That is probably like the single-handedly the most difficult thing to do because I don't I feel very very strongly that I don't want to stick to like a genre or like a motif. Like I like the sounds that I like. And then so the first album was like singer sad boy, like writing like just up to that point in my life, the first 25 or 26 years of just my like things, and like there's like some influences of like rock and like hip hop and maybe not hip hop on that one, but like pop and just like I don't even know, just like because it was only just me and my guitar and like one song I played a harmonica on, and I just did it experimentally, and it was just like acoustic and me myself and I. And then the second
Mhm.
one was like just totally all hip hop and like I made um I don't know. It's like music is a weird one because it's like everything's a remix and everybody's stealing from everybody else. You're either sampling or like very few people are like writing original ass things because it's been going on since the beginning of fucking time, and that like it's all influenced from other different artists who were doing it before them because they were stealing it from somebody else. So
Mhm.
man, I just try to make shit that I think sounds cool, and then a lot of the times, at least specifically with hip hop, that I'll write the entire like lyrical like themes and words that I'm saying in the song, and then work with my fucking producer slash homie to like make the beat and stuff around what I think the song should sound like.
Mhm. And creating the music compared to like live performances, like what does that look like for you?
Oh, dude, I fucking I want to say that, but I shouldn't say that. But I'm not. I don't feel very confident in my ability to perform live. I because I am very like high standard and type A personality where I just want it to be fucking like perfect, but the shit's never really gonna be perfect. I go to open mics and like can play songs. Like I really like playing Over the Rainbow with the version where he also does What a Wonderful World, the short little like bridge part of that song together recently. And but like as far as like my music, there's not a song, maybe like one song on the first album and then a couple of songs on the second album that I think are actually worth like performing for people for like live, because very much the first album is like this like storytelling aspect of my life and like shit that I was just going through and like had gone through and like wanted to do or want to
Mhm.
do. And then the second one is less, maybe yeah, more of just like less of a storytelling and more of just like I'm fucking just this is what I think and what I feel about some shit going on in society and in the world. And I don't know. I don't. I'm such a fucking eclectic person that I don't know how or who or when people are gonna find me or what they're gonna like when they do get there. So I'm just trying to like do the best I can with it, I guess.
And it's interesting you say that because, like, before we go into like the spiritual aspect, because I know when I was telling people about this interview, this was their most exciting part. They're like, ayahuasca, I want to hear about this. But Thomas Edison once warned that vision without execution is delusion. How do you ensure your ideas are grounded in actual steps?
You gotta.
How do you make sure this is something that's actually possible to achieve?
Oh shit. Well, I am a dreamer, so um,
Facts.
yeah, I just like
Same here. Same here.
the,
When I talk to people, they're like, "Yo, what the fuck are you saying?" And I'm like, it's fine, man. Like, if you were thinking like I was thinking,
yeah,
you'd be right with me. But you
yeah.
ain't, and that's cool, man.
Right,
Like,
dude. Yeah, you gotta fucking birds of a feather flock together, or you're like you gotta find the choir to preach to. Like you're talking
yeah,
to people, God, talking to people who can't even like see the moon past the finger. Then like you're just
yeah.
there's no hope for them. There's no hope for you. You gotta like there's a psychology term that's like apperception that like when you say something and it goes into somebody's mind, hits their apperception, which is like the collective like filtration system of their entire life up until that point. If it goes in there, doesn't hit bounce off of a single fucking thing, it comes back out right back at you with no way for them to connect to you. There's
Mhm.
just no hope. There's just nothing you
Yeah,
can do. Literally nothing
yeah.
you can do. But to the point of the question that I had, I forgot. I'm sorry.
So how do you make sure that your vision is like grounded in actual goals?
So there's you could just you break it. Yeah, how do you eat an elephant? You know, like one bite at a time.
Right.
There's a thing that I
That's a
learned.
great way to put it. That's a
Yeah,
great way to
yeah,
put it. One
yeah. I
step
mean,
at a time.
that's it. Thousand mile journey or thousand,
Yeah.
yeah, one step at a time. And that the other aspect of it, this is sort of like a life coaching thing because that's something that I like to do as well. Or just having the perspective of how to get a thing broken down into achievable steps is it's just a SMART goal which I had
Mhm.
learned in the Boy Scouts when I was like 13. It's like you got to make it specific. You got to be able to fucking measure it out. How to be able to tell that there is an actual like growth thing happening. It's got to be attainable. It's like you're not gonna fucking you're not gonna bust out 69 handstand push-ups right the fuck now. Like I gotta do a shit ton of exercise to get to the point of be able to do that. It's gonna be relevant. It's like you're not gonna fucking like do a shit ton of squats to fucking get your arms jacked, and it's gotta be timely. Like you gotta be able to do it in a fucking like X amount of years or days or like these are all just like can you actually like count out the thing to make it happen? I guess.
Now, this question might hit deep, but it's a question that I like to ask because it's usually this is grounded like my own personal belief. But like, would you consider yourself as like a lonely person? And I'll give you a quote. They say loneliness is a sin that you have to atone. Is a sin uh, that you have to pay for a complexity of mind.
Yeah.
So do
Nope.
you think based on your aspirations that like it's harder to connect with people?
Uh, on a very deep and profound level, yeah. I mean, the I've always had this like repulsion towards the shallow and the vain and like the just like not like I don't even know
Like,
how
I
how
used to
to
get
say.
really upset and people would, like, actually clown me for this, but I used to get so upset when people would respond to, like, a long-winded answer and just say, "But why?" And it would make my, like and people would say, "I don't understand," and it's like, "Well, I spelt it out for you." Like, I literally just and then people and I had to, like, step back from, like trying and like because I felt like I was being preachy, but it was like people were probing me, like, "Why do you do it? Why do you do it?" And then you
Mhm.
would give them the answer, and then they go, "But why?"
Yeah,
And
it's like what?
you're like, "Where do I go? Like, where do I go with this?" And
Right.
I felt like I was turning into like a recluse because
Mhm.
it's just like I felt like all of the conversations that I was having with people were like so surface level, and it was actually like getting to a point where like it wasn't annoying me, it was
Mhm.
starting to like annoy my counterparts, where
Mhm.
like my brain would go in a direction where like, why are you always thinking about that?
Mhm.
Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
because I'd be like, oh, I love, like, I'd see someone, I go, man, I'd love to interview that person on my podcast. And they're like, why are you always talking about your podcast? And you're like, you know, so like, did you ever feel like you had to like recede in a way from like the public in order to like maintain like your own thought process?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's it's what's the quote that I'm thinking of right now is that like you can find a a strong man alone and a weak man in any crowd, or
Hmm.
something to that effect. That like to have the mental resilience and the belief in yourself to be able to like achieve greatness and do incredibly awesome things, or if you're just like obsessed and like passionate and like people who aren't that way just don't fucking get it, dude. Like I don't.
And,
It's
and do you kind of like, because I've had times where I had to look in the mirror and go, who's the right one here? Am
mm,
I the delusional one?
mm,
'Cause if so many people are saying it, right? Like, so is that so? And then like I just had to be like, yo, I just don't fuck with certain people now. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
I just don't put myself in like areas where like because I was the only one doing something. So then anytime I got somewhere, it was like, talk to me about this, talk to me about this, talk to me about this. And then it was like, but if it was too much or it was too complex, they'd be like, well, now you're annoying me.
mm.
And
Well,
you're like,
it's you just got to find the people that are actually on the same wavelength. Like
right.
if you don't if you aren't going where you're wanted, then you just gotta fucking like
Yeah,
no,
fair, but I think that type of idea is easier said than done because I think you have to get slapped in the face 9 times before you find a person that actually right? And then it's like,
yeah.
how do those experiences like motivate you to not do it as opposed to do it, right? And do you find like this is a motivation that you have to continue to like prep yourself for and be like, no, 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 it's gonna work this time. And then you're like, this is exactly what I thought was gonna happen. It's all good. Next time it's gonna be different.
Mm, well, I'm just thinking about like how throughout my life that basically things happen, or I'm like with a group of people for a certain amount of time, and then eventually like I change or I get the like the growth to a certain growth point threshold, and like something shifts in the dynamic of the group, and things are never really the same anymore, and I can just kind of like tell that it's like time for
Mhm.
me to like make my way
Yeah,
to the next
exit.
like yeah the next chapter, the next level, the next thing, and that like if you aren't comfortable doing that, then you'll like stay and like accept where you're at and like not change, and like it's just
Yeah.
that's just not who I am.
And going into like your spiritual journey, do you found like uh this has had a lot of influence over like these three pillars that we talked about, whether that be podcasting, musical, or comedy?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. It's one of those things where like people say that like politics bleeds into everything that you do unconsciously for, and I think that like religion or spirituality, um, more or less does that for me as well. That like I think that's partially why I don't and can't get along well with people who uh are like deceitful or are the clout chasing type of people that are like stab you in the back to fucking to get an advantage in their career or any kind of crazy shit like that, because it's there's no integrity, there's no like honesty there, and like truth is like such a pillar and core belief for me, of a belief in a truth and in some type of like higher power, that like the people who don't see it that way, it's like I just I pray for him. I wish him the best, but I can't like waste my time.
So what do you think your spiritual journey is like rooted in? So like we talk about ayahuasca and like doing that, like, so where did this all start and like how did it grow into like what it is today?
So what originally set me on the fucking like the path of like healing and spiraling into the unknown and like questioning the chaos of life was my parents getting separated and divorced. when I was like 13 years old, 12, 13. The writing is on the wall that the domestic situation what I grew up in wasn't fucking great, and I've been getting a lot of big feels in therapy about it recently. But like, yeah, that was the first like crack in the original ego identity that I had as a human being. And then when I started smoking weed, like 3.5 years later, I was like 16, almost 17. There was another big chink in the armor because it was like, wait a second, this thing that I was told however many times in school, health class, that it was like this awful,
Dangerous.
evil thing is like makes me feel fucking great, and like I don't feel as shitty and worried about the situation in my house anymore. And then yeah, getting in a fight with my mom and like going to live with my dad after starting to sell weed was like really, I think, the final straw that broke the camel's back, because it was like it opened up the whole conspiracy theory fucking jar of worms that I'm just like, oh fuck, like the, there's a lot of fucking lies out there that are masquerading as the truth, baby. Like, what the fuck is really real? And then like taking psychedelics, stronger psychedelics past weed with like mushrooms and stuff and acid started to like just like allow me to, I think subconsciously, like retrospectively, I'm able to say this, that I was like just looking for healing the entire time, because now all of this science is coming out of like how powerful and profound these psychedelic substances are to people, to us, and like
Mhm.
historically were like when we were tribal people, like we just have lost that fucking magic, and it's like still there, and it's calling us back to it if we hear it. And like that was kind of
Mhm.
like what brought me to the ayahuasca.
Now, do you find you when you're like when you talk about psychedelics and stuff, do you find there's like a type of mindset you have to be into? Like you have to like do you find you have to like put yourself in a specific mindset in order to begin that journey? Or like are you at a point now where like you're pretty like level? And like what would be like some advice for people like experiencing like say mushrooms or like ayahuasca for their first time?
There's definitely a humble curiosity that you need, and you have to dose it out correctly. I advise anyone considering this path or these ways of healing to consult a physician. I know I never did, but legally, I'm probably obligated to say that if you have any type of family history with like schizophrenia or anything like that, like it can not do well for you. I've only met one person in my life so far that I am aware of who like basically mushrooms did cause him to have like a fucking psychotic break. I've
Mhm.
witnessed one in an ayahuasca ceremony, but I can't speak to that woman's um
Yeah.
like medical history or anything like that, because I don't didn't really know her all that well. But yeah, there's you just gotta be in a safe, comfortable place, and come to it if with like some form of intention, unless you're going to go full recreation, and then by all means that's just up to you. I can't speak to that
Yeah.
because who
Yeah.
knows at that point. But if you're going with like the healing route, that like intention, be aware of like why you're doing it, because when things get uncomfortable or difficult for you, you're going to have to like really fucking feel into and sit with, fuck, this is why I'm going through this, and like
Right.
be there.
That's interesting. And now, like based on your experiences, you're actually like I think you said you are looking at or are in the process of like being an ayahuasca shaman, correct? Or is it like how does that work?
So I am 2 years away from moving to Hawaii. And then once I get there, my plan is to build a retreat center with my really good friend Teddy, who will be the first person that interview. Sorry, that's being a
Yeah,
saying details that are important. I just this is my story that I
it's
have
our,
very repeat to
yeah.
myself quite frequently. But get there, help him build his house in the retreat center, grow the ayahuasca in Hawaii, and then go start at once there's like money to be had, and I'm able to start journeying to the Amazon rainforest, hoping by like 31, 32, somewhere in the next 4 years, to
Yeah.
make my way to the Amazon and experience Yahe ceremonies or Ecuadorian or slash Peruvian ayahuasca ceremonies and find a teacher somewhere in that part of the world, and
And that's
get you.
how it works
I mean, traditionally, yeah. I mean, there's
traditionally.
people that I'm aware of, and then the people who taught me how to facilitate in a ceremony, which is not the same thing as being a shaman. Uh, that like they are like fucking German, straight out of Germany. So it's like they're not. Then they're not. They'll tell you that they're not shamans, and they're really good at what they do. And the people who come to their ceremonies are okay with paying the prices that they charge, and that they get a lot of benefit out of doing it that way. But for me, it sort of feels like it was like a training wheel, or like one of those things where it's like I was got leveled up to the point that I needed to, and I just know that there's deeper, more to explore, more to experience. And I, again, this thing of like being obsessed with the truth and needing to know, and being the actual, like, it's sort of like a mad scientist energy of like being your own litmus test and like understanding what the fuck is actually really going on in the world. That like
Mm,
I need to know what the fuck is good with being an ayahuasca shaman. Because the one ceremony that I did go to Costa Rica and do, my very first one, that like completely like I literally wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if I didn't do that. And it's just like that simple. It changed the
wow.
entire trajectory of my life. So, and I just need to like, I want to be. I don't get need. My I mean, maybe I do need to do it. Of like being that for somebody else, to being able to like know that I'm putting them on quote unquote the right track, or like helping them shift into like the best version of themselves. It's just that's I need to do that. It's what I'm on the earth to do.
Yeah. That's it. That's interesting. That's really interesting because it's like you've seen it in your own like personal practices, and you're like, this is something that someone needs to like experience, or having the willingness, and then you can kind of like bring them through the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, facilitating radical shifts in human consciousness as a fucking person that I am, because that's what I when I incarnated, that's what I wrote down I wanted to do on the soul contract, if I could say it in my own weird
Yeah.
terminology.
No, for sure. Couple questions. I I want to ask a few couple like wrap up questions because I think these are going to drive the most amount of impact, and I think it's going to cause you to have the most amount of thought. Um, Having work across a lot of different mediums, what do you hope that your work? How do you hope your work impacts the audience or the greater community?
I mean, I hope people like heal and are well, and like are inspired and motivated to overthrow the fucking powers that be, and realize that like we've been suppressed for fucking so goddamn long, and that ultimately we have the power to literally overnight choose to just be and think differently, and that power is something that terrifies them, and that's why they do so much to try to make us feel small and weak and disconnected and afraid of them. But like we're the ones with all the power, so that's kind of just like why.
And do you think when looking at like your legacy or like what you want to leave as a lasting impression, uh like is there a type of legacy or impression that you're trying to leave with through like your work that you're doing now?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's super. Like, I try to like really do have all of the motivation be service to others, and like this like greater good like thing of like lifting up the sky like Alice, and like keeping fucking hope and everything alive. But dude, I'm just a one person, and I am super selfishly motivated to like be remembered as like a fucking pivotal historical figure, the way that like Plato, Aristotle, or any of these like incredibly deep and profound thinkers were, or like revolutionary like people that like hopefully to fucking not fucking become a martyr like Martin Luther King or Jesus, but like be like Gandhi and just be this fucking human being who like completely and utterly changed the zeitgeist or the world, and that like that to be remembered for seven more generations in the future, 1,000 years. I don't know. It's all like my own selfish desire, but it's like leaving a healthy a loving family behind, and like being a steward of the world and having it be better than when I got here, basically.
That's amazing. It's amazing, man. Good for you, dude. I think that's I think this type of attitude, or even the type of like exploration you want to do spiritually, like it speaks a lot to like your humanity, as well as like your empathy towards people. Um
Yeah,
and I want to, have a heartfelt thank you to you for coming out and sharing your journey with me, as well as my audience. Um, this does wrap up an episode of Solo Spotlight. If you found value in today's conversation, consider subscribing, leaving a review on your preferred platform. Your feedback helps us bring more inspiring stories to light. Stay connected with us on social medias for updates, behind the scenes content. Keep seeking, keep questioning, keep shining your light. And one shout out to rss.com. We are an affiliate with rss.com. View the link below to start your own podcast. Your support with using our links uh, helps us build up and bring more people. But yes, thank you so much for coming on today. I think what you're doing, and the all of the things and goals you have in place are extremely inspiring, and very inspiring. And like it seems like you have a good roadmap for success and kind of what you're trying to do, and you seem to be like doing it in your own way.
yeah,
um,
I'm a very slow person, but one day at a time, like everybody else, right?
and with that, don't forget to see my guest and his work. Iris of the Eye podcast on all platforms, right?
Iris of my eye, yeah.
Iris
That's
of my eye. Check out your music, your stand-up comedy if you're in the California area. We'll link all of your if we haven't got it already, your social medias and all that. If you have it, we'll put all those in the descriptions below. Anything you want to sign us off with?
uh, yeah, just like you, whoever is listening to this, if you made it this far, you're fucking awesome, and I
Yeah,
appreciate
fuck yeah.
your time and attention, and like you are good enough, and you can do the things that people are telling you that you can't do because the haters don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
That's right. All right. With that, that concludes another episode of Solo Spotlight. Thank you very much.
Mahalo.